Good evening, everyone. Tonight, my interview with the author of The Contender, the book about Andrew Cuomo that's generating so much buzz. We will dig deeply into his relationships with other state officials and why he can't seem to get along with most of them, and also talk about his complicated relationship with the first governor of Cuomo, his late father, Mario. And Dominic Carter's emotional interview with Eric Garner's mother.
My bad days is when I get up and all I can think about is his last day on earth and his last words.
And then a very personal story about a New York kid who was treated as an adult by the criminal justice system and why he's pushing New York to stop that practice. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And tonight we do start with The Contender, the book about Andrew Cuomo that has just hit store shelves this week. I sat down with the author Michael Shnayerson earlier this week to discuss it. I, as well as a lot of folks who've worked in New York politics and covered it, including a lot of folks in the legislature, I've had them around my table over the last week, and they've all been going through the index to see, if they're in there, and they'll flip to the pages and say, I've had the book. And I got to tell you, from their dealings with the governor, they think the description that you've managed to put into this is really spot on, and they've had some of their own colorful anecdotes. And first to the title, and to when you believe you began the project. Did you believe when you started on The Contender you were writing about somebody who was running for president in 2016?
Absolutely, Richard. This was late 2011. He'd had a great first year as governor. I wasn't imagining this career path for him. He was being spoken of in everything from Time magazine on down as the most promising Democrat for 2016, obviously, aside from Hillary. People feel very differently about Cuomo, but no one would disagree that he's got huge tactical abilities and huge ambition. So, in that sense, I think he's still a contender.
I know you've spoken to hundreds of people associated with the various Cuomos, and you also know about the less than flattering nickname that the late Andrew Cuomo had, Mario Cuomo, excuse me, which was Hamlet on the Hudson. I knew folks that were waiting in Manchester for the plane that never came for when he was going to announce his race for the presidency. It was said, and I think fairly so, he didn't need to be president, or for that matter, as we'll get into, a Supreme Court justice. Do you believe that Andrew Cuomo needs at some point to at least run and try to be president?
I do, and it's an interesting question, Richard, because it reminds me of something that a close associate said of Andrew. He said that Andrew is going to run for the White House. He's going to think that that's going to make him happy. And if he even actually wins, it still won't make him happy, because there is some drive in him, some sort of emptiness that can never be filled. That was also a guy, by the way, that Andrew indicted. So, I'm not sure that we should take his opinion without a grain of salt. But I think Andrew is driven, and it's simply from a political common sense perspective. What else is he going to do? He gets to 2018. What does he do if he doesn't run? Running for a third term as governor? I don't think he would have the desire to do that. I certainly don't think that's the way he wants to end his career. Yet he's already been a cabinet secretary. So he's sort of boxed himself in.
And to be fair to Andrew Cuomo, his father wouldn't have been elected and reelected without his help. And that's from folks that I know have been on the inside of all the campaigns. He may have gotten the nickname Prince of Darkness, but he was a terrific strategist. Talk about, obviously, how it shaped their relationships, but also how involved, first in his governor's, in his father's own campaigns, Andrew was, and really how it shaped him from a very early age.
Well, it's very poignant, really. I mean, you can't get better drama than 1982. By then, Andrew is 24. I think his father is running for governor. Has run before and lost for elected office. Was serving as lieutenant governor, but it's just a kind of a placeholder, if you will. If Mario loses this election in 1982, his political career is finished. It's his son, Andrew, who, as his campaign manager, worked so hard and cleverly, and is such a relentless operative, as he called himself, that actually helps win his father the governorship. How amazing that you're 24, 25 years old, and you've actually saved your father's career. Mario, of course, was grateful to him. People say that he thanked his son. But there was always a sense of setting a standard that Andrew perhaps couldn't meet. And I think it made him very frustrated and resentful. And also, at the same time, his father gave him a lot of power in that first term, power to fire people. And Andrew went around firing a lot of people, especially older people, and that's what earned him his name, the Prince of Darkness. So
I remember from, I thought, a pretty poignant eulogy that Andrew gave his father, and at one point he talked about a regret, and I happen to have witnessed a part of this, which was Andrew wasn't there for his father's final gubernatorial campaign. He came in the very tail end when his father was behind the polls quite a bit to George Pataki. And he tried to clean house, even with some additional familial drama attached to it as well, but there wasn't enough time to kind of right that ship. And he felt a lot of guilt about that, and said so in the church recently. To that end, was that divide when Andrew went over to HUD, even tried to lobby to get his father maybe a Supreme Court nomination and all the rest? Was there a gap between their relationship that in some way time may have mended some of really the distance between the two?
Well, I'll take that in a couple parts. First, to that eulogy and his remark about his father in his last race. That was sort of the one and only takeaway from Andrew's memoir. To be frank, I mean that's what sort of made the news. I've talked to people who say that's just not true. That actually Andrew was trying from the beginning to discourage his father from running for a fourth term because he knew that Mario was tired, and the voters were tired of the Cuomo brand, and it was actually affecting Andrew and his own prospects. So I'm rather suspicious of that version that you've cited. Now, as far as HUD, a fascinating story in the book is that, in '91, a young Bill Clinton was running for the presidency, and among his rivals was, undeclared as yet, was Mayor Cuomo. And you remember it came out that Jennifer Flowers had taped Bill Clinton talking about all sorts of things, and at one point he talked about Mayor Cuomo and said some sort of ethnic slurs, and that came to light. And of course, Mario, professed great indignation at all this, but also, like any smart politician, knew that if Clinton won the election, he would have a favor to call in. That's exactly what happened. Actually, Mario himself went to Henry Cisneros, the new cabinet secretary of HUD, and point blank pleaded with him to take his son as one of the 4 assistant secretaries at HUD. That was a perfect job for Andrew because Andrew had worked with the homeless, which was true. And Clinton agreed to do it because it was a way of expiating his guilt.
Up next, more of my one-on-one with Michael Shnayerson, including details about Andrew Cuomo's relationship with his late father, Mario, and how the two of them had such different styles. Plus, Dominic Carter's emotional interview with Eric Garner's mother.
He took away my son. He took away my joy. And it wasn't like my son was trying to harm him. It was like a thrill kill for him.